This week, we welcome Robert Shield, Director of Engineering, Chrome Enterprise at Google, to discuss the enterprise browser for the modern workforce. In the Leadership and Communications section, proactive boards enable more reliable cyber governance, CISO best practices for managing cyber risk, the evolution of work, how can companies prepare for what's to come, and more. Business Security Weekly starts now.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
Broadcasting live, it's the show where we explore the business of security to improve the security of business. Your trusted source for actionable insights on leadership, communication, and innovation. Get ready for Business Security Weekly. $270. That's the average number of times a company comes under cyber attack each year. And the average cost of a successful data breach is $4.35 million. Cygnus ensures your internal and external teams are securely connected, confident, in control, and compliant during a cyber crisis. Visit securityweekly.com/Cygnus to learn more. That's CYGNVS. If your organization is ready to embrace edge computing, we have good news. The 2023 AT&T Cybersecurity Insights Report provides everything you need to know to get started. In the report, we identify the common characteristics of edge computing. We found edge use cases are rapidly coming online, and we reveal how to secure edge computing. Most importantly, you'll learn how to prepare for your edge ecosystem. Get your complimentary copy of the report today by visiting securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. That's securityweekly.com/ATT Cybersecurity. Welcome to Business Security Weekly. This is episode number 326, recorded October 30th, 2023. I am your host, Matt Alderman, back here in studio. I love being here. Joining me for this segment are my co-hosts. In studio with me, Mr. Jason Albuquerque.
Matt, it's great to be here. It's almost Halloween.
I know.
My Patriots still lost. They're still not doing well. Broncos kicked butt against KC this weekend, man.
Defense looked good.
God, they look so good.
Look good.
I'm going to have to become a Broncos fan, maybe?
No. Don't go there. Don't go there.
More disappointment?
Yeah. More disappointment to come. Also joining remotely, my other co-host, Mr. Ben Carr. Welcome, Ben.
Hey, guys. I'm sitting here in Texas on a rainy day, wishing I was in studio with you guys.
It's rainy here too, my friend.
It's
rainy
good to be
too.
here with you virtually.
Yeah, it is rainy here, by the way. So there is no sun, I don't think, anywhere in the United States right now.
It's probably colder
it's like
here than
40
it is in Texas.
Here.
Oh, so you're, wow, I guess.
Yeah.
All right, so you have New England weather. All right, great.
Yeah. Same.
Nice.
Same. Security Weekly listeners, we are celebrating the milestone of reaching over 1,000 members of our CISO community. The Cybersecurity Collaboration Forum is a one-stop shop for executive collaboration comprised of CISOs across various industries. If you want to be part of this growing community of CISOs, join us as a member or technology partner. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/cybersecurity collaboration. This segment is sponsored by Google Chrome Enterprise. To learn more, please visit securityweekly.com/Chrome Enterprise. Robert Shield has been at Google for 16 years, with the majority of the time spent working on Chrome. With a background in Windows development, he has worked on projects ranging from performance and resource management to security, anti-abuse, and end-user-facing features. He now leads the Chrome Browser Enterprise Engineering Team, a highly cross-functional team that understands enterprises' browser needs and works to meet those needs. Robert, welcome to Business Security Weekly.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
So this is going to be a fun segment because I'm an app user data guy. So thesis, 2015, I wrote a 5-year strategy plan when I was at Tenable. And I said, look, the world's moving to the cloud. The controls that CISOs can really control are things like access to the application, user controls, data security, because I didn't know who's going to own the endpoint, who's going to own the network, right? It's very distributed all over the place. And that concept has kind of played out over the years, right? COVID accelerated digital transformation, moving stuff into the cloud. the browser now becomes this really interesting interface to the world of business, doesn't it?
That's absolutely right. I mean, that migration to cloud is exactly what we've been seeing, what our customers have been seeing as well. And the browser, in many ways, is that new surface in which everyone does their work. And so you have companies thinking about their cloud migration, building out their security strategy, their security posture. But in order to do that, they really have to be thinking about the browser as well, and making sure that's part of the story and that's part of their narrative.
Yeah, we saw a ton of investment going into application security, API security, because now everything's communicating through APIs. We've seen interesting consolidation around the identity side of the business, right?
Yes.
We've seen Thoma Bravo making some interesting acquisitions in identity, and data security to me has always been the holy grail, but the browser's the interface to all those things, and we're starting to see this kind of transformation in the browser space as well. But here you've got Chrome as is probably the leading browser in the world. And
That's
you guys are
true.
doing some really interesting things to actually create some enhancements in the base Chrome browser, aren't you?
Well, that's right. I mean, we started looking around at this about 3 or 4 years ago when we realized that people were building these sort of elaborate bunkers of security around their cloud data, but leaving this sort of flapping screen door occurring in the browser where people are accessing data in the first place. In the last few years, Google Chrome has built things from a cloud control plane to in the browser security policies that actually extend your cloud security posture right into the browser. Right, tying into identity systems, tying into your reporting and auditing and forensic systems as well, and as well as your automated remediation systems. And so we've been able to build all of this straight into Chrome to help customers who are thinking about, all right, I've secured my data in the cloud, but how do I now secure it at point of access?
Yeah, and so talk a little bit to us about how does this work? Because when I think about the browser, right, I download the browser, I get in, I go to a URL, but how do you interface? Like, I as an end user, I don't think I can do this, right? I'm like, how do you create these hooks into the identity system, into the data? Like, how does this actually work?
Yeah, it's a great question. So think about it. You download your browser, you visit your corporate mail site, whatever that may be, and you type in your username and password. Maybe if your organization is modernized a little bit, you have an MFA of some kind, and then you sort of get access to your mail. And from the point of view of the administrator running that system, the only signal they really have for should I trust this endpoint is, did this look like a user I know, and maybe did they have an MFA? But what you're not getting is any of the things the browser could help with in terms of device posture, where their certificates provisioned. Do you have some of your mandatory corp extensions present in the browser? Do you have any security software running? And the way this works in Chrome is we can actually augment those login journeys, right? So a user comes and signs in. What we can actually do is help provide to the authentication system. We help provide these signals. Say, oh, okay, well, this is a browser running on a machine you own. And perhaps it's a chain of trust established through provision certificates or other means, right? And so we can actually help augment these existing journeys and sort of close the loop around, am I using all of the signals possible when someone's coming and accessing one of my corporate resources to make the right decision at the right time?
Yeah, which means obviously there's a lot of stuff in the user agent string that can be used. I think about, it's not a corporate device though, potentially anymore. So right. So
here's what gets really, that's right. This is what gets really interesting. I mean, yes, sir. If you have a managed device, you can add signals. When you have an unmanaged device, Chrome can start actually doing even more interesting things. Right now, if you have a contracted workforce or you have a workforce with some BYOD devices, effectively you're kind of in the dark, right? Unless you can persuade employees to download and install agents, which is a fraught and error-prone process. You really don't have much signal other than, okay, this is a new endpoint coming and accessing my service. What we're able to do in unmanaged environments is you can actually use Chrome's built-in login system. Because Chrome is identity aware through its profile system. You can tie this to your existing identity system, and when someone comes and signs in, you can actually get them into a signed-in managed state where you can pull policies, you can pull data loss prevention controls, and so forth on an unmanaged device. And you can do things, for example, create a private key pair on the device. You can do things like, well, next time someone logs in, is that the same device they used the first time? So you can do some session continuation assertion as well. Right? So what you're actually able to do is extend to some degree your security posture right down even to unmanaged devices.
I was just going to say, I mean, from a browser perspective, it's becoming that core platform on how our organizations do business these days, right? I mean, we're talking about productivity and collaboration happening through browser. We're talking about, visibility into data, into systems where you no longer have the fat client anymore and you're going through browser. From from the Google's perspective, how are we looking at this for overall risk management? And when I say that, we talk a lot about classifying assets, right? Can you take the browser, or is this something that is in the pipeline where you can take the browser and know the risk because you want to be able to mitigate risk against the collaboration platform, but maybe you want to allow certain users access to different types of platforms and really manage that risk down to the micro segments?
Yeah,
I almost feel like micro segmentation through the browser.
That's exactly right, Jason. It's taking these capabilities and actually being able to make decisions based on, is this a browser I've seen before? Is this a device I've seen before? Do I have policies applied to this? And what level of risk, what trust tier am I willing to associate this endpoint with, right? So you get to a state where, all right, maybe the folk in this particular OU or this particular group are trusted to access these resources, but only with these data loss prevention controls. For example, don't let them copy, paste, print, etc. Right? And you can really make these super highly granular decisions based on the user and the device and the browser and the session. So exactly to your point, you're effectively making a very detailed risk calculus for every given access you allow. Right? You can do this all with these built-in controls in the browser.
That's amazing, because now we're talking about endpoints that could be 100% browser driven and nothing else on it.
Yes.
If we can do things like prevention and detection, centralized management, and then visibility and controls down to the services that are being offered, that's a game changer.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I don't disagree with the thought that this brings kind of a new potential for some interaction, right? But I guess what I go back to, and to play a little bit of contrarian here, is does this not enter into a use case issue, right? Where when we have control of the device and we're talking about that clients, and I think this is part of the pendulum swing, right? Of shared workload, full client, right? Where we're swinging back that way to a full shared workload. But does the use case issue not present ultimately a problem, right? Where you're going to put a control on and say, hey, you can look at this information, but you can't print it. But then the business is going to say, yes, but I need to print this document, right? And so be damned with the controls. Like, I still want to do this, right? And it gets to, I guess there's a macro conversation that I think when I was reading the articles, and we'll talk about later, that's the macro of like, what control does the CISO actually have versus just enabling the business? And the micro level control of persons on a browser, they're a sales guy in a remote capacity, and how much control from a security perspective do I actually get to say what this person's going to do, right? More the theoretical aspect of how we apply this versus the technical aspect of what can we do. So
I think it's a great question. What we've actually heard from customers is sort of a gamut of different needs. Some are in the, well, let's just prevent all this altogether. Others are in the needs, and some of the things that we've got coming down the pipeline, and actually some are even already available with sort of the Beyond Corp Enterprise product you can add into Chrome, is that you can actually configure this such that if an employee needs to print or needs to download a file, they can, within the browser, because it's at that right semantic level, it can actually say, well, all right, if you want to download this file, click here, put in the reason why you want to download it, right? And then that will either be automatically approved or it can be sent off as a request, right? And so we have this level of granular controls that are in the browser, some available today and some coming down the pipe, whereby like all of these different use cases are things that you can do because you're right at that point where the employee is trying to do the action. Right, they're trying to download the file. They're trying to copy paste the thing. So you can get in sort of synchronously in line with that operation. You can say, all right, let's allow this to happen, but either let's add a justification to it, or let's make it a request that has to come down later. So to your use case point, absolutely, we have seen different customers with different needs for these types of workflows.
Yeah. And I would argue that's going to be a problem no matter what tools we're using.
Oh, of course.
Because even with MDM, you're going to have folks who are complaining, I can't do this, or I can't, do my job with it. I mean, it's we're just extending
that exact use case was like we saw that with DLP 10 years ago, right? I mean, remember when I was at Nokia, we were having that, and the whole just-in-time use case for somebody saying, "Well, I need to do this, right? I need to plug in a USB drive. Can you allow it? Open a help desk ticket, have somebody approve it. It's quasi real time, and let it go forward." I see that. It's just there's this constant flex, and Jason, I'm sure you've seen it, right? The pushback of the business against what really are good security controls and things that are protecting us, right? And the desire to not care.
No, 100% agreed. I think that's a bigger problem that we need to be having at the level of business, business level, right? But I mean, my brain starts spinning now, and Robert, is that something that can transition no matter what device? So my mobile device, if I have my Chrome browser, will it follow me if I decide to jump on my son's Chromebook and do some work because all of a sudden I have this high priority issue that's going on, and the only thing I have around me is my son's Chromebook? Can I log in with my Google account and get that same experience? Is this something that's going to follow me everywhere?
Well, I think that's the power of this all being, optionally identity keyed, right? Because as soon as you have it tied to your login, then this follows you regardless of what device, which instance you're using. If you're using your mobile phone, if you're using your desktop, these follow you because they're tied to your corporate identity, right? Because Chrome has the ability to pull policies, do reporting, and so forth at that level of identity. You get all of this, and it follows you along regardless of which form factor you're on.
What's interesting about it being at the browser and following you around, whether it's a corporate device, an unmanaged device, my mobile device, like that's really powerful, because if you think about the challenge of agents, I got to install the agent. Well, agents don't install on my phone. They don't install on my Chromebook. They don't install in certain environments.
Right.
This alleviates some of the challenges with an endpoint agent to do some level of an enforcement. Now, maybe the endpoints can do more, but what I'm hearing, Robert, is the ability to do a set of access controls, data protection controls, all through the browser actually gives you some advantages that you can't get in a normal agent.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I should mention as well, in cases where people do have agents, Chrome will actually natively integrate with them. I think we announced a partnership with Broadcom Symantec recently where we integrate with their local agents. But in cases where there aren't agents present, this opens up a whole new set of opportunities where before you couldn't really have much agency or control unless you could somehow persuade a user to download an agent on their personal device, which, as you mentioned, might not even be possible on mobile devices.
Right. And I mean, this has been the hybrid workforce challenge. Like, if the end user owns the device, can I force them to put an agent on? They still need a browser.
Right.
There's a way around solving that hybrid and remote workforce use case.
And then I sit back and I say, what technologies that exist today, as this matures, are going to be deprecated? Our VPN is going to be a thing of the past. Virtual desktop, is that a thing of the past? Like, does this basically decom a lot of these technologies that are out there right now? Could it, right? As these things mature.
Well, it could. I mean, obviously, we see the remote desktops and the virtual desktops and a lot of technologies that were built to create some level of security controls. If the browser now becomes the main interface, which it has for almost every single application, I mean, this is a potentially better control point to actually manage all of this, for sure.
Yeah, I think absolutely in many cases. I mean, there are things that you can do with remote virtual desktops and so forth that you may still need. But for many of the use cases people actually use those for, just being able to have some guarantees from the browser running on the endpoint actually meets those use cases at a much lower price point and a lot less complexity.
Robert, one of the things we've seen evolving over the past few years is these enterprise browsers, right? So we've seen the market see a need to protect the browser, but they're coming up with various solutions to this. And I want you to kind of compare and contrast what those other browsers are trying to do, right? So you've had remote browsers where the browser renders everything in the cloud and it's not on the endpoint, so you can't, attack the endpoint. You've seen other enterprise browsers that get installed. Like, what are the differences in how Chrome Enterprise, kind of addresses this versus some of those other approaches?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think maybe one thing I would say is that we're seeing a bit of a convergence in the browser space. I think all browser vendors are recognizing from their customers the need to be able to tie the browser into an organization's security apparatus, right? It's no longer enough to just think of the browser as an application. The browser is actually an active participant in something that helps you secure your environment. And we're seeing this convergence across effectively all browsers currently in the market. Right. So when I think about, enterprise browsers, consumer browsers, there actually isn't that much difference in capabilities, because what you're seeing is largely adopted browsers, Chrome and many others, are building many of these capabilities directly into the client themselves. To your other question about how do we think about, okay, well, everything's converging in the browser client itself. How do we think about sort of differentiating this? How do we think about making this, a great experience in our browser? And the way we really think about it is there's two things, right? There's the browser client that runs on the endpoint. and the capabilities that that has around management and security properties and so forth. And then there's the cloud control plane. We call ours Chrome Browser Cloud Management, right? And that really enables and unlocks much of the functionality, both in terms of controlling and securing the endpoint, but also in terms of tying into an organization's security infrastructure. So for example, sending reporting events to your SIM, being able to remediate through your XDR system, right? These are all things that the cloud control plane enables through the APIs it provides. And so the way we really think about it is when you're using Chrome in enterprise, right? You're using both the browser itself, but you're also using components of our control plane to integrate with the rest of your system, the rest of your operations. And we think that's where there's a tremendous amount of value provided. And I think that's where many browsers are going to end up differentiating themselves on features and integrations.
Right. But you guys have the footprint, which is kind of interesting. So it puts you in a really unique position because you do own a lot of the browser workspace. So it puts you in a really interesting position to continue to build out these capabilities and quickly get them into clients' hands, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I encourage folks to explore the space here, but really look at what they already have as well, and make sure that they're using all of the capabilities that are already built in to Chrome if they're using Chrome, and make sure that they're taking advantage of the client-side controls and the free cloud control plane as well.
One of the other things this potentially solves is the pre-record we did right before this around asset management.
Yes.
Right?
100%.
I mean, Robert, I'd love to understand, like, every time somebody logs in from a different location is potentially another asset that is part of a risk profile, and it's a challenge. Asset management's been a challenge for a long time. Talk to me a little bit about how the Chrome Enterprise can actually help augment that asset management problem.
I mean, it's a fantastic question. It's actually a use case many of our customers first come to us too, right? So I'll walk you through the journey here. So someone picks up a laptop from a stack of laptops, maybe your tech support office, maybe it's a personal laptop, and they go and sign in on Chrome. If you're using Chrome Cloud Management, if you're using our identity integration, what will happen is you'll actually be registered, that sign-in event will be registered with our cloud control plane. And you'll end up seeing, all right, you have a new login from a new device by this user. You'll also be able to set various degrees of logging around, which services are accessed and so forth. And so what you'll be able to do is you can then tie that in. We have a number of APIs, and also on our backend system, you can integrate it with many other first and third-party systems. Say, all right, now I can actually, for a given user, query the list of assets they used to sign in. I can make sure that the list of assets or the list of devices that I know are accessing my services, that maps to the list of devices that I actually think should be accessing those services, right? So in many ways, when you turn on the cloud control plane, and you turn on Chrome Browser Cloud Management, you get all of these signals and reporting data that you can use to correlate and sort of solve, fix a little bit of a gap that's in some existing asset management systems.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting.
Yeah, and then you layer on top capability to almost take over the job of a CASB, right? Now you have that cloud access security broker, and the browser's doing it. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's
right.
My next question is, as these services mature within the browser, what other capabilities do you think that you're going to be able to introduce that are going to get offset? I mean, are you going to be able to do full malware protection through the browser? Are you going to be able to, and again, I'm talking future state now of what's coming from Google and the other enterprise browsers. Like, what does that future look like? Where are we headed?
It's a great question. And actually, you're also sort of talking present state. So if you use the BeyondCorp Enterprise integration in Chrome today, one of the things you actually get is you get on-demand malware scanning. As you may know, Chrome has, for sort of free services, it has safe browsing that sort of scans malware available on the internet, provides verdicts and so forth. If you use the paid edition of the BeyondCorp Enterprise product, you actually get on-demand malware scanning. So this will actually run your malware through Google's detection systems in real time, in line with download. So you get some of that today. In terms of where we're heading, right, I think that the first pass is continued deeper integration with organizations' identity and security systems. So you should be able to, for example, if you see a login from a device that you've never seen before, or you see a login from an unexpected geographic region or so forth, you can actually integrate this today with an XDR system and say, that's unexpected. Let's do some remediation here. Let's maybe sign out that user, send them a password change notification, or place them in a lower trust tier, for example. So you can do many of these integrations today. I think in terms of where we're headed, we have many sort of forward-looking plans around deeper integration with sort of zero trust deployments. We have many forward-looking plans around deeper integration with some of the AI offerings coming out of Google as well. And I think all of these sort of are enabled through that connection of your endpoint to the cloud control plane.
Yeah, and I think the cloud control plane is the other very interesting point here from a differentiation perspective, right? Because you talked about Beyond Corp, but you've got Workspace, you have your ZTNA product, you have this big entity called Chronicle, which can log a bunch of events. Like when I think about the Google ecosystem for a second, like this is a natural set of consolidated potential capabilities, right? Because we're seeing consolidation. I mean, it's so real in the industry right now. Everybody's trying to reduce the number of vendors. And so how do you consolidate? And I see with some of these other Google Enterprise kind of services, like you're getting a lot more out of Google with this kind of control plane in the middle, right? Because I'm assuming that's enabling all these other services as well.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. So like when we think about it, we have a number of sort of first-party Google offerings, and we actually use the vast majority of these every day internally at Google. And what we're effectively doing is slowly productizing all of our infrastructure. So what you can get today in terms of, you mentioned Chronicle integration, you can get sort of real-time reporting from all of your Chrome endpoints. You can actually turn this in through our SOAR offerings as well into remediative steps where there are, anomalous events and so forth. You mentioned integration with Workspace, which provides both an enhanced control plane around some of our security features, also has a tremendous productivity story. And then sort of woven through all of these products, right, Google is bringing sort of these new AI capabilities around, log summarization, around inference and sort of anomaly detection as well. And so you're absolutely right. The control plane, and in many ways, the way we think about it is sort of this foundational layer that's enabling a whole pile of really interesting new management, security, and productivity services over the coming years.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. I just look at all the different organizations that could benefit today from that. I mean, so many nonprofits, school districts rely on the Google ecosystem today. Think about the security posture that they could have if they started enabling and adopting all of the capabilities that exist today and make sure that they're paying attention to what's getting released in the future. I think it could be a game changer for nonprofits, K through 12, educational institutions, universities, things of that nature that are all in on Google.
And don't have the resources to manage endpoints and EDR solutions and all these additional capabilities.
So many fairly easy lift, right? I mean, there's not a lot to actually do or deploy. It's kind of there. And you're ready to go. You just have to turn it on. Yeah.
That's right, Ben. It's adoption, right? It's adopting the technologies that they have today because, again, they're all in on the Google Enterprise. So, let's start educating these organizations because they are so high risk right now because they don't have the resources, they don't have the talent. A lot of times they don't have the budget, right? So let's get them to adopt what they have.
What do you think, Robert?
I couldn't have said it better myself. I mean, yes, we should absolutely do that. I mean, from the lens we're looking at this from, right? One of the difficulties in this space is it's actually pretty complicated to tie in many different security systems, logging, auditing, remediation, response systems from all different vendors, and really sort of build these end-to-end flows. What we're trying to do with Chrome, with Chrome OS, you mentioned in the EDU segment as well, where Chrome OS is heavily used, is really make this stuff easy, right? Deployable in practice. You don't need a team of DevOps necessarily to turn on some of the basic controls. So if we can come in with a product that is and that's what we're hoping we're doing with the cloud management control plane, is really make this easy to turn on some of the basic controls, but powerful enough to integrate with like the most advanced security systems that people use today.
And I think people can actually try Chrome Enterprise for free, right, Robert?
That's absolutely right. Chrome Browser Cloud Management is free to use. If you deploy Chrome, you can just look for Chrome Enterprise. You can use your favorite search engine to search for Chrome Enterprise and Cloud Management, and you will find the free sign-up form. You sign into the admin console, admin.google.com, turn it on, and you deploy your fleet. In terms of going back to that easy point, enrolling browsers is as easy as pushing a token, a text string, to your registry or as a text file on Mac and other platforms. You can do this with MDM systems. There are many, many ways of doing it. But we've had customers who come up to us at a booth on a conference floor and say, how does this work? We show them how it works, and they'll come back 20 minutes later having enrolled their entire fleet. It is that easy to do. Right? Again, our whole point is make this as frictionless as possible, and it is genuinely very easy, very quick, and not disruptive at all to any existing infrastructure to get started with cloud management.
Jason, that's the first say easy, do easy I've heard in a while.
I know, right? Proof is in the pudding. Let's see it.
Exactly.
You beat me to it.
Robert, thank you so much for joining us on Business Security Weekly.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
To learn how Chrome Enterprise can protect your workforce, please visit securityweekly.com/Chrome Enterprise. We're going to take a quick break and then cover the leadership and communications articles for this week.